Hi, I'm Pradeepa, and today we're going to paint this beautiful scene from the Lake District. It's of a little bus stop in the countryside, and I've got a little reference photo for you as well, although you'll find that my drawing doesn't quite correspond to the reference photo. So if I can paint it, you can too. And today we're going to use just three colors to paint this painting. And I also make loads of mistakes, as you will see in the video. So I'm going to show you how I correct the mistakes that I make. Let's do this.
For this you will need cobalt blue, burnt sienna and green gold. If you don't have green gold, you can use Nicolese or yellow or a mixture of yellows and blues. You would also need a small brush, say a size 6, a size 10 and like a size 2 or 1 even. I also have here a 9 by 12 inch paper of Bockingford, and I've got the masking tape around it and also 2 containers of water. I also have my paints here, as you can see. Now I'm just going to sketch the bus stop and the scene generally with a pencil. I prefer obviously using a ruler for the bus stop because I'm terrible with straight lines. Now I've got the reference photo up in that corner, which you may have already seen. And so I'm just constructing the bus stop, just keeping an eye on the angles of the lines and the heights in respect to the whole painting of the bus stop. Now I haven't judged it perfectly, as you will see when I finish the painting. When I finish the drawing, and that's okay. There is room for error here. If you do want an exact representation of that, I would suggest that you either use a light box to copy the exact position and shape of the bus stop, or to use a grid system to do the pencil drawing so that it's exactly the same angle. You'll see especially that it's reflected in the roof. A lot more of my roof shows in this drawing compared to in the reference photo, but it still looks okay. But and in that sense, landscapes are a lot more forgiving compared to florals, and definitely more than portraits. So that's our bus stop complete. I've got a bit more of the land to do. I think this is the point where I realize, there's too much of a roof showing there compared to the reference photo, but that's okay. I've decided, and we've now finished drawing, so we're ready to go on to the actual painting. As you can see, I'm mixing up the cobalt blue and getting out some of that burnt sienna there. And we're going to paint the majority of our painting with these 2 colors and then also green gold. So that's why I'm mixing up a huge puddle of blue and brown there. And I'm just watching the reference photo to see where the lighter colors, where the blues are. And you can see that stronger blue on the left side of the sky there, and some lighter blues, and even some blues mixed with the brown in where the actual clouds are. So you see I'm mixing up that sort of more murky blue now, where a bit of that burnt sienna is mixed in. And I'm just using my eyes, and wherever I observe a more murky blue, that's where I'm putting that blue mixed with burnt sienna there. And you can see right in the middle and the top section as well, they have that color. Now I'm also going and just softening out the edges of the blue sections that I put in. Again, I'm just doing how it looks like in the reference photo, and you can see how that's the actual clouds that I'm painting in now, with that very light wash of blue mixed with burnt sienna, and softening the edges because you can't quite see where the cloud finishes and where the sky starts in those areas. So that's what I'm trying to do as well in the painting. Now, once I've done all that, I'm also going and painting the extra blues at the bottom of the sky and filling in the clouds in between the sky with that very light mix of blue and burnt sienna. And if you notice, the edges of the clouds are all a bit scalloped. So that's what I'm going and drawing like little, or painting rather, little circles around the edges of the sky or the beginning of the cloud. You always have to realize that the end, where the sky ends, is where the clouds begin. So you've got to bear that in mind when you paint. So here I'm mixing some more of that burnt sienna with some more blue, and I'm going to, I think, make quite a strong mixture because we're going to paint the bus stop. So I think that's it almost looks like black, and I'm using this to carefully, this is where a brush with a good tip really comes in handy, because while the brush holds a lot of paint, the tip really helps you to define those edges really well. And especially with buildings, you've got to make sure that those edges are straight, unless of course you've got a wonky building or an old building. And that's it really. I'm generally following the direction of the building with my brush strokes as well. So here we are mixing some more of that blue-brown color and painting, and now it's more brown rather than blue. I've just switched to a smaller brush because I'm just painting the edges of that bus stop, which are lighter than the side which is in the shadow. And now switching to a bigger brush, and you can see going for a more bluey shade. We're painting the inside of the bus stop where it's again in the shadows, and just to show that it's also much cooler in there. So the blue is taking a lead in this. So we'll be using the same mixture, the blue and the brown, but sometimes it will be bluer and sometimes it will be browner depending on what we see with our eyes. So a bluer is a cooler mixture and a browner is a warmer mixture. So where the sun's rays hit, it will be a little browner, and where there's no sun, it's a little bluer. I hope that makes sense for you. Now I'm getting some of the green gold, and we are going to use that color to paint in where the sun, well, the grass in general, and you'll see how I'm going to paint that green gold over the whole area and all the way up to the edge of the bus stop. And then I'm going to use the blue-brown mixture for the shadows. So I've got some more of that green gold that I'm painting. And we've got that green gold going all the way. And you can see how many times I'm reloading my brush if I run out of paint. Ideally, you'd want a good puddle of green mixed here. But as you can see, this is a video where I show you all the mistakes I make. And in the case of this particular stretch of green gold, it doesn't matter too much because as well, I'm, been painting for a while, so I know the consistency of green gold that I'm using. But if you were to do it, I would suggest you to mix up a good batch of green gold right at the start, and that's going to really help you. Now just mixing some more of that blue and brown and using that as shadow colors. Now you'll see, if you can look at the reference photo, that I'm not painting the shadows in the right area, because what I'm trying to do is paint that row of hedges just behind the bus stop, and I've not left a space for the sunlight falling behind the shadow of the bus stop. So that's the point where I realized, oops, what have I done? So I've quickly got a brush, a dry brush with just water, and the water completely squeezed out, and I've used that to pick up the place where I put the hedge in the wrong place. So I'm going and bringing the hedge up now all the way, because you can see where I marked the little fence there. And so this is how you do it, folks. You just use a paper towel, or I sometimes just use a toilet roll to just pick up that color. If you do that while it's still just wet and you've just applied it, you can pretty much lift everything. And now I'm just going and covering that area back up with green gold. And after my repair job is done, I'm going and using that blue-brown mixture, but now with a bit of green gold mixed in it for the shadow. And quickly you can see how, the form of the landscape is quickly forming. You can see that that's a shadow of the building that's just in front of it or to the side of it. And as you can see, the green gold, that the first layer of green gold that we put in is still fairly wet. It's not dried yet. So the second layer that I'm applying on top has sat well over it and is just mixing and mingling in. I'm also adding the hedges on the far side of the bus stop. You can see, if you observe that, there's like little bushes. So for every bush, there's like a shadow. So that's what I just did. Now, I'm just moving the palette so you can see better. So I just realized halfway through that you couldn't see what I was doing with the green gold rather. And I'm just realizing also that I haven't painted the little bit of pavement that goes up to the bus stop, but that paint is dried. So I said, okay, we'll leave it for now. I'm going and putting the paint in the foliage, which is just under that roof of the bus stop. It's actually the bushes that's behind and further up on the road. And I'm using a mixture of the blue-brown mixture, but also green mixed in. Looks like we moved on a bit here, and we're doing the shadow inside the bus stop. Now, these are the important things to observe in a painting. You can see where there's a little bit of sunlight that's falling into the bus stop, and then there's that stark line where the shadow starts. And I've also now noticed that there's a bench which has two legs. But as you'll see, I'll just now paint over one of the legs and lose that leg entirely. So, that's another mistake right there. And you'll see how later on I restore that leg, if you like. So, so that's the second layer of the inside of the bus stop done. Now the inside of the bus stop has dried, so I can paint clean lines to define the outline of the outside of the bus stop. And I'm just going and putting in the road or the tarmac that leads from the road to the bus stop, that little bit. And it's in this bit that you have to observe the lines, the angle of the lines. You can see it's almost like at a 330 line, and I realized I've done the wrong direction. So here I am picking up the extra paint that was in the wrong following the wrong direction. So you see that now reads much better to the eye. So you can see in my top well there's a mixture of blue and brown, and sometimes I'll be adding more blue and sometimes more brown. This is obviously a more bluey mixture that I'm using almost in a dry brush. So I'm using the side of the brush to go rapidly over the paper, and because it's a cold press paper, you will get the texture of the paper as I'm painting. So you can see how the texture is easy to make when you're using dry brush like that. Now, while it is wet, I'll be going and dropping. See, I'm just rinsing my brush over there and then just dropping some of that burnt sienna straight into the road where I can see all those brown bits in the reference photo. Not everywhere, but just here and there. And that'll just bleed into the blue and create those marks in the road. And now mixing some more blue-brown, but with a more blue emphasis. I'm doing that distant bush. It's a bit bigger in my painting compared to what it is in the reference. It's probably just a massive tree. That's probably what it is. But it still doesn't look too out of place. So I'm just going with it. And I think this has a little bit of the green gold in it, but it's generally very much cobalt blue and a bit of the brown. And the way to do the tree is generally just paint the whole tree and then just do a little bit of the leafy bits at the outside. That really helps the eye to get the impression that it's a tree. Now, just rinsing out my brush again and getting some more of that lush green gold. You can see how that's such a warm, almost browny green. And I'm doing the bit of grass that's just behind that hedge. And you can see there's so much of sunlight in that area. So I'm doing that bit and then doing the hedge or the row of trees and bushes that's behind that sunny bit. And coming up behind the bus stop as well. And see, you constantly got to keep, it's the same three colors, but we're constantly changing up the combination to suit the shade of the bushes or whatever it is, the subject that we're painting. So here it's now a bit of that green gold, a lot of the blue, and a little bit of the burnt sienna. And I'm just stopping short of where the tree trunk would be, and also making sure I don't go into the roof. So there I am now, picking up with a dry, clean brush that the legs of that bench. So it is possible. So I know that while it's not very wet, it's also not very dry, the wash that I put inside the bus stop, which is why I'm able to do this. Now I'm mixing up some more of that brown, and you can see it's more of a brown mixture than a blue mixture, and I'm using, but it's quite dark, it's quite creamy, and I'm using that to paint in the roof of the bus stop. And as you can see in the reference, there's that dark line where the tiles are, and it's just a side profile. I'm trying and painting it as straight as I can, but not doing a very good job of it. And again, going and doing the front. So I'm just doing this to show you that you don't have to be perfect when painting a painting. As long as you get the tonal values right, the darks and the lights, you will be okay to paint the whole painting. As long as the eye can see that it all makes sense, that's all we need. So I'm going and doing the roof, trying to put the roof tiles, again, all wonky, and you'll see me correcting that in a minute. I realize as I come down that the top tiles are quite wonky. So I've just got a brush with that brown in and just correcting that line there, and see I'm just dragging my brush along with a very light wash to and then just defining the edge on the other side. And it looks okay now, doesn't it? So everything can be much more easily corrected when the paint that you've applied is still wet. So don't panic if you put something down wrong, and you can correct it if you notice it immediately. And I'm going and reinforcing the roof of the edge of the roof of the bus stop. Now you can see I've shifted to a smaller brush, maybe a size 3 or 4, and I've got some clear cobalt blue over there in that corner, and it's quite watery mix that I'm using, and I'm using it for the paint the white. I think is it the fascia or the fascia, I think, which is in the shadows. So it's still white, but because we're using a very dilute mixture, excuse me, it still looks white. So here we've got the tree, which I'm using the blue and the brown, but predominantly more of the brown. Again, we've got quite a creamy mixture there, and I've gone to a bigger brush now. I think it's a size 8 or 10, and I'm painting in that tree. You can see that the green that I've painted for that bit of sunny grass is quite wet, and my brown is bleeding into that green grass. So I'm just going to be watching it. If it's going to bleed too much, I will be repairing it later. But for now, I'm just concentrating on the trees. And because I've just painted the edge of that roof, it's going to be wet. So I'm just leaving a sliver of white between the tree and the roof. And I'll probably fill that in later. And now I'm just working out. You can see my pencil marks there where I've just penciled in the trees roughly. It's not exactly, I'm not following the reference photo exactly, but I'm just trying to see where the trees are in respect to the roof of the building. So whereabouts on the roof they set off from, and that's more what I'm trying to achieve here. The other thing to keep in mind while you're doing trees is while they can be higgledy-piggledy, the bottom of the trees have got to be wider than the top where they branch off. So you can see this one, I will fill in the trunk because some of the branches are even wider than the main, see that, yeah, main branch. So I will be coming in and filling that in later. I'm just following a little bit of the reference photo, but I painted a lot of trees, so I'm just using my judgment as well. And I'm just painting in the main branches. I'm not going and doing the little branches. It's just the main branches that I'm painting here. So I'm taking my time to observe where the trees are going. It's always good to have some overlapping trees as well. And I don't think I'm going to go all the way to the other side of the roof with the trees. As you can see in the reference photo, the trees, the tree trunks originate, and that's where you can see it's bled too much. So I'm just using a paper towel or in my case, the toilet roll, a paper to just pick up that bleed. And again, I think I'm just going to keep it to where the top of the trees will just start from where the top of the bus stop is. I don't think it's going to go all the way down the roof. So now, while the trees are wet, I'm going in with that green gold to just cover up where I picked up that bleed. And now I'm using a bigger brush to paint in the foliage. Now the brown that I put in for the trunks is still quite wet. So where the leaves overlap or come in front of the trunk, I can just scrub a little bit and make sure that the green goes in front of the tree trunks. You'll see what I mean in a bit. So I'm coming down and painting where I see the foliage in the reference photo. And I'm also trying to keep the foliage where there's not much blue so that the green can be seen much more easily. So one of the things that you need to keep in mind is you need to reload your brush a lot. So I'm going with a mixture of green gold, and then sometimes I'm putting a little bit of that blue, green and brown mixture into the green gold, because what it will do is give it a more, so so you can see here right now, I'm just displacing, I'm just moving the brown that I put in with that green gold and blue mixture. So when it dries, it will look like that bit of foliage is in front of the tree trunks. So going back to what I was saying, when we put the blue and brown into the green gold, it just starts looking more natural. Anytime you put a more red or brown into green, the green starts looking much more natural, because that's the colors that you see in nature normally. So again, I'm displacing some of that. I'm just, using a bit of force when I put that green gold or green in, and just displacing the brown with my brush. And you can only do this when the when the tree trunk paint is still quite wet. When after it is dried, it's harder to do this. There are ways to do this, but I would recommend you go in quickly with your green if you're going to do it this way. So I'm just going and reinforcing that brown, and also so I still have that brown, you can see, but it's okay, because adding that brown in with the green is going to give it a really nice color to the green. And I've put in I think all my greens where I wanted to be the green gold. Now I'm mixing a darker shade of the same green by putting a bit of blue and brown, a bit more of the blue and brown, and I'm adding that color as a shadow color for where the shadows of the foliage lie. And if you notice, because the sun is coming from the right, I'm putting all my shadow colors towards the left. You'll see as I keep going, I'm dropping them wet and wet really into the left side of every bunch of green gold that I see. So again, this is just an appreciation of knowing where your sun or the source of light is. And it just makes so much more sense to the eye when you do it that way. So I'm mixing some more of that darker green with the blue into the green gold, and using that to put all my darks in on the left side of the painting. And I think that looks, you can see once we've added the shadows, everything looks so much more natural, and it reads so much better for the eye. So I've shifted to my smaller brush and getting out a mixture of the blue and brown again. And I'm going to use this. Now this is a much smaller brush with quite a fine tip. And I'm using that, so it's quite a dark mixture as well. Using that to put in the final little twigs that are coming out of the branches here. And you've got to be careful that you don't overdo it. But I'm just looking at the reference photo, and there's quite a few twigs, little branches that are coming out. So I've now changed to a slightly bigger brush because I think that brown was quite dark. So now that I put all those dark bits in, dark little branches, I've got to go and match it with the color in the branches. So that's what I'm doing here. So putting those small branches, but then also going and adding that color into the main branches so that it all makes sense to the eye. It's all about making sense to the eye. I think you're getting the point here. You don't have to be perfect. As long as you know the principles that the eye uses to see a painting, and you're working with those principles, that's all that really matters. So as I said, I'm just going and adding those dark browns into the tree trunks as well. But I'm also making sure that I'm not going over those foliage bits that are in front of the tree trunks. So, I mean, you can work on this as long as you like, but I'm just, again, here I'm putting the shadows, if you like. I'm just using them as shadows and putting them where, on the left side of the tree trunks. We're going to the bit of the bus stop that's just under the roof. That's at the front, and I'm not sure if you can see it in the reference photo. It's still white, but it's got a very warm white orangey tint almost. So while I put a more brown mix there, I'm going and lifting that up predominantly, as you can see. So you can still see the brown, but you can also see, because it's so much lighter, that it's white. And I don't like the edge of the bus stop there because it's got all messed up. So I'm just lifting color up with a nice scrubber brush, which is usually a flat brush, and then lifting the paint with a paper towel. Now mixing some more of that brown and blue. I think I've got to fiddle about a little bit more with that bench that I see sitting in there. I don't know, guys, for some reason I was just fixated with that bench, and I had to make it look just right. You'll see in the end it still doesn't look quite right, but I decided to leave it. Now at that point I'm just painting the wall, because I can see that the wall is a bit darker compared to the floor. So that's what so the wall under the bench is a lot darker compared to the floor and the wall above it. So that's what I just did. Now I've got my nice dark green, which is again a mix of the blue, the brown, a little bit of the brown and the green gold, and I'm using that to put the shadows into the hedge. Again, if you think about it, the light is coming from the right, so all the shadows are going to be more on the left. So that's why I've left those spaces there in between to say that, okay, some light is falling on that side, on the right side of the bush. And I'm trying to work out, if I work in a straight line, where will the bushes be on the other side of the bus stop? And I'm going to put the shadows. You can see that in the reference painting. There's a line of shadows where that hedge is, and then there's some bushes behind it. So I'm putting the shadows that are at the bottom of the bushes, and then just using a brush with a little bit of pigment but more water, and just softening the edges of the shadows that I've just put in. Now I'm also going to paint the little rails that I see there. You can see again I'm making a mistake. There's not that many lines, so quickly picking that up with a trusty tissue paper and going and redefining. I think I've decided there's maybe one or two, but that doesn't read badly to my eyes. I'm just going to leave that because it actually looks like some of the darks in the foliage there. I'm going and reinforcing the shadows of the bus stop now with a mix of the green gold and blue. It actually doesn't matter if you've got a little bit of brown in there. It all reads great as a painting because it's the same three colors in various combinations throughout the painting. So it actually is a very harmonious painting. You can make loads of mistakes and it looks good because of just using three colors. And going and reinforcing. So this is actually my third layer for the foliage there, and I'm just adding the shadows. You can see there's some tree shadows that are falling on that side of the sunlit grass. So I'm just doing some brief shadows, not too much. There's some more shadows, but I'm not doing all of them. And then I'm going and reinforcing the shadows again for a third time on that side. Now I've also realized that the edge of the bus stop is not well defined, so that's what I'm going to do here. Just redefine that a bit more, and also the edge of the building a bit more. I think I'm not quite happy with how that white edge looks, so I'm just scrubbing it a bit and picking it up with a straight edged tissue. And that's the way to restore a white line as well. But you can only do this if your paints are not very staining. So there we go. See, I just filled in that shadow, little sliver of white there, and I'm also reinforcing the dark bit of the roof there where it ends, and the dark edge of the roof on the front as well. Rinsing out my brush, I'm just adding some more of that very light blue on the shadow edge here, so that it still looks blue, but you can tell it's in the shadow. So whites, you have to be really careful that they still look like white, but they're still in the shadows. Now I'm using a mixture of the brown and blue, but more brown and more blue, and painting that bus stop sign there. And you can see, again, I made a mistake, even though I've used the ruler. So I'm just picking that up with the brush so that it looks straight. And so that's all it is to correct that bit. And that's the bus stop sign over there. Now I think the bus stop also casts a shadow, which we've got to put in. Let's see if that's what I'm going to do right now. Yes, that's what I'm doing. So that is a very long shadow, and it kind of is quite nicely connects with the bus stop. So here I am removing the tape, and there we have it. That's the completed painting. I hope you like it. Showing you a little bit of a close-up there. And it's turned out quite well, considering how simple and how simple it is, and we only use 3 colors. You can refine it a lot more if you like, but I think that looks great. And it looks really fresh because we didn't go over things too much. And hope you like it. Please do like and subscribe if you want more, and that really helps my channel to grow. And thank you so much for watching. See you next month in a new video.